Just to terrify them with the possibility of what's going to happen if they don't give you what you want.
Witcher 3. Several minor characters provide exposition regarding their experiences as individuals. You can't even talk about why, like, what it's like to be a video game without it being like, well, I don't know if we should go there. It's just so weird. Ugh.
These no-name studios are behind the single most coordinated effort to indoctrinate millions of children through entertainment that's ever occurred in this country.
And how can you be against love? Nobody can be against love. Certainly Christians can't be against love because God is love and we are called to love.
Satan's war on children, by the way, is a war on God.
So this video from the Act Man was recommended to me titled, "Every Video Game is Woke, Apparently," and I think it's worth talking about. Just a quick disclaimer, I actually generally like the Act Man's content. He's an interesting guy, and I usually like hearing what he has to say about random things happening on the internet. So I'm not attacking him or anything. I'm just sharing that I have some pretty different opinions than him on this topic here.
What's up, everybody? This is the Woke Man here, and today, turns out there's a lot of games that are woke out there, and you've got to be on the lookout. Thankfully, there is a list just for you, so you can keep track of all of that woke nonsense and all of those political agendas being pushed into your games, and you can avoid it, and I'm gonna help you. So here it is, ladies and gentlemen, and just so you know, this list is very, very comprehensive. It is there's a lot of woke stuff out there, a lot of wokeness. As you can clear, there's 1,400 games on here. Look, okay, it's no secret that companies are sometimes pushing agendas in media, pop culture, video games, and whatnot.
He says, it's no secret that companies are sometimes pushing agendas in media, pop culture, video games, and whatnot. I agree here, and I think the main difference between us is that I think the agenda being pushed is much more serious and dangerous than he thinks it is. Which makes sense considering I am a Christian and he's probably not. So we have very different standards of morality and what's appropriate or safe for children.
Bloons Tower Defense 6 is woke now, fellas. It's been compromised. It contains overtly pro-LGBT messaging. Can you believe it? There's a pride flag item available in the trophy store with a pro-pride message. And that's the review. That's their review of the game. They're reviewing games based on wokeness. This amorphous blob of a term now. But Bloons Tower Defense 6 has been compromised. Thank you, Woke Detective, for making me aware of this. I can finally cleanse my. Just get the wokeness out of here. Get it out of here.
I do agree that the word woke is sometimes thrown around a lot without a clear definition, so I'll try to give one here so we know what we're talking about. Woke basically refers to a mindset or movement that seeks to challenge and subvert the dominance of what is considered to be the oppressive class, namely white, male, heterosexual, and Christian, by elevating the voices and influence of groups that are considered oppressed, for example, the LGBT community and women.
But according to critical social justice, the hegemony in America, the oppressor class in America is white, male, heterosexual, cisgendered, able-bodied, native-born Christian.
Now, why would anyone have a problem with a game like Bloons Tower Defense 6? Well, it depends if you think same-sex behavior and messages to kids is sinful and dangerous or not. If Christians believe same-sex behavior is a perversion of God's design for human sexuality, and that the same-sex movement is actively working to convince kids that same-sex behavior is completely normal and to be accepted and celebrated, then yeah, there is a big problem with kids playing a game like Bloons Tower Defense 6 that is communicating this message, no matter how subtle it is. And oftentimes, it's the subtle messaging that's even more dangerous than the overt messaging. I understand that if someone like the Act Man doesn't think there's any problem with same-sex behavior, then it wouldn't make sense for people to have problems with a game like this. I'm just pointing out that he seems to either not be seeing the alternative point of view, or he thinks it's so stupid it's not worth mentioning. I want to give him the benefit of the doubt here, because honestly, I like watching some of his content.
Well, obviously Starfield is pretty woke, you know. Pronoun selection, they, them, body types instead of male and female. Improbably diverse NPCs in all areas. Well, hold on, what the f does that mean? Improbably diverse? They're in space. You see, it's not just what games they classify as woke, it's also the reasons and the recommendation.
I agree that I don't really care about improbably diverse characters in a fictional space video game, but let's talk about those other two things. The pronoun selection and choosing body types instead of male and female are both meant to subvert the idea that God created humans to be either unchangeably male or female. The game is clearly trying to convince children and people who play the game that the concepts of biological male and biological female don't really matter and aren't really real, which again is really dangerous to children who don't have the rational ability to fully understand these ideas.
Oh, Baldur's Gate 3, yeah, that's definitely woke for sure. I won't be playing that. It did win Game of the Year, but it... Come on, it's woke. It's woke, fellas. Sorry, Larian. Hades fans, oof. Sexual relationship between minor characters. Optional romance. Damn. Didn't that also get some awards?
But a game winning an award really has absolutely nothing to do with whether it's communicating dangerous messages or not, right? In fact, like in the movie industry, a lot of times things win awards because activists want to promote woke or subversive messages within things like movies and video games. And a game being good and popular could make it even more dangerous, because more children will play the game and be influenced by the agenda and messages within the game. The Act Man seems to primarily care about if a game is fun to play or not, and not about the people creating games like these who are very obviously trying to subtly communicate subversive messages to the children and people playing the games. But if you're a Christian or a parent who does care about children learning and submitting to God's moral law as He has revealed it in the Bible, then there actually is a lot to be concerned about in the video game industry. And the situation might actually be even worse than anyone thought.
So here's a statistic that, at least if you were born at any point prior to the 1990s, might be hard to believe. By revenue, the gaming industry is bigger than both the movie industry and the music industry combined. And for the past several years, it hasn't been especially close. The difference is consistently more than $100 billion per year. So video games are a massive market, one that's mostly targeted at young people, of course. But despite those numbers, for the most part, the games industry has avoided mainstream scrutiny. You'll see far more discussion about, say, Sydney Sweeney or Taylor Swift than you'll ever see about prominent video game voice actors and directors who pretty much no one knows anything about. Everyone's heard of Lionsgate or Paramount, but almost no one's heard of studios like Don't Nod Entertainment, for example. And that's significant because these no-name studios are behind the single most coordinated effort to indoctrinate millions of children through entertainment that's ever occurred in this country. This effort is maybe more powerful than the teachers' unions, if only because these propagandists mostly work in secret.
The Act Man implies that subtle messages aren't worth being concerned about. But I would argue that it's the subtle messages that mostly fly under the radar that are the most dangerous, because they subtly normalize what the Bible calls sin and cause children to start to see same-sex behavior and feminist messages as being completely normal.
The other famous Power World is woke because it uses body type in place of biological character creation. Who cares? Who cares? You see how easily like all of these are just written off as like they label that as overtly pro-LGBT. Like, that's kind of crazy, dude.
I mean, you said earlier that you know a lot of companies are pushing agendas, so maybe that's why a lot of people care. Just because the agendas being pushed are subtle doesn't mean there's a very real agenda being pushed that is meant to undermine the Bible and Christian values. And in fact, as we've mentioned already, the very fact that it's subtle is very intentional. The goal is to normalize things that shouldn't be normalized, not to cause a huge controversy.
You're probably thinking this is like a pride flag too, but unfortunately it is merely a t-shirt of a T-Rex riding a skateboard in a reference to Pink Floyd's famous album, The Dark Side of the Moon. It was the wokest thing I could find in my house, but no. If you thought I was wearing a rainbow shirt, you're really funny. That's really funny. It's crazy that like that's all they need. Like that just this, like a pride flag in a game. Even if it's an optional cosmetic, you can't even have that. Like they don't even want that. No rainbows allowed. No rainbows, no pride flags.
Honestly, I think having pride flags in games isn't as insignificant as the Act Man is making it out to be. It communicates an entire worldview that is diametrically opposed to the Bible and Christianity. The same-sex movement is working extremely hard to not only normalize a behavior the Bible very clearly calls sin, but also to get everyone to actually celebrate this behavior as a positive good. This movement, confuses children about their sexuality, and oftentimes leads to disastrous consequences in the healthy development of children. So no, I don't think promoting the same-sex movement is a little thing at all. I think it communicates that the game actually hates the Bible and God's moral law as revealed in the Bible.
It's starting to sound like the people that call things woke just like they want all the people out of video games. Because it's like, why always highlight which games have or relationships? Nobody used to give a shit when it was like KOTOR or Mass Effect. Nobody cared. The people that cared were the out-of-touch Fox News representatives. Now we have like gamers writing this shit. What happened?
I don't know about the people who created this document, but from a Christian perspective, is it really that weird for parents to care about their children not being indoctrinated with ideas they think are contradictory to biblical morality and dangerous to their upbringing? As Christians, we're commanded by God to actually teach our children what God has revealed about what is right and wrong behavior, not to just let video games and other things in the world teach our children. The Ackman also insults Fox News people without mentioning any of the problems with other news networks like CNN and MSNBC. And regarding the gamers who are now also calling out these agendas in video games, maybe they could be right in pointing out that some of these messages and agendas in video games are actually a pretty serious problem. For example, what this person with power in the video game industry says is pretty disturbing.
If you're in development and you are part of like that dominant voice, you're like a cis hetero white dude or just adjacent to that, do not wait until the end to call your consultants. Bring them in at the beginning, and instead of asking them, hey, is this very racist thing we did very racist? Or is this deeply offensive thing we did deeply offensive? Are you hurt by it? Ask them what they want to see. Like, ask them what would thrill them, what would bring them joy. And if you have a team lead, put that request to them very, very early. If you're a creative working in AAA, which I did for many, many years, put this stuff up to your higher-ups. And if they don't see the value in what you're asking for when you ask for consultants, when you ask for research, go have a coffee with your marketing team and just terrify them with the possibility of what's going to happen if they don't give you what you want.
GTA 5, God. Unfortunately, it features multiple minor NPCs. Isn't that unfortunate? Yeah, Fallout 3, jeez. The games that are safe, though. Team Fortress 2, no woke content. Thank God for that. Witcher 3, several minor characters provide exposition regarding their experiences as homo individuals. You can't even talk about why, like, what it's like to be a video game without it being like, well, I don't know if we should go there. It's just so weird.
Is it really that weird to be concerned about these kinds of things, though? Does the Ackman not know that there are a lot of religious people, including Christians, who consider same-sex behavior to be sin and don't want their children to be learning about same-sex behavior from video games?
In other words, love can be sinful. Remember, I told you this is an important word for our day. Love can be sinful. We live in the midst of a culture that needs to hear that. It needs to hear that from us, because it's coming at us with this whole love is love mentality. And how can you be against love? Nobody can be against love. Certainly Christians can't be against love, because God is love and we are called to love. Therefore, how can you stand in the way of any two people who love one another? But our text today makes it very clear that there are instances when love can be sinful.
When same-sex people in video games talk about what it's like to be attracted to the same sex, that kind of sounds like the game is trying to educate children about these kinds of things, not just provide something that's fun to play.
Left 4 Dead series is not... Wait a minute. How? Hold on. There's a lot of black zombies in Left 4 Dead 2. And speaking of, 2 of the 4 playable characters are black, and one of them's a woman. How is that not woke? That's 50% of the playable roster. How is Left 4 Dead 2 not woke? You see how stupid, how fucking easy it is to just point out like minorities and women and say, look at the wokeness. Game's woke. But they don't do that for Left 4 Dead 2. Why?
I do agree that that document perfect and has inconsistencies in it, but shouldn't it be obvious that there is definitely an agenda in a lot of these games to push ideas that are very clearly anti-Christian, such as same-sex behavior and undermining the God-created concepts of men and women? This doesn't mean nobody should ever play any of these games, but isn't it good to at least know the kinds of worldviews and messages that are being communicated in these games, so that we're not just mindlessly indoctrinated by activists? Take a look at this cutscene from a popular video game, which basically paints in an extremely unfair light white people who think illegal immigration is a problem.
Gonna tell the police you kidnapped me.
Nice try. But I know who you are and what you did in Seattle. I saw it in the paper. Maybe I should call ICE to make sure you're a citizen.
You hillbilly. I'm American.
Watch it, punk.
Whatever. You're going to jail for this.
Pretty sure the local police will vouch for me over a thug like you.
Where's my brother?
Wish I knew. Little took off. I'll find him. Don't worry.
If you touch him...
You think I'd hurt a little boy? Guess you didn't have any second thoughts about leading him out into the middle of nowhere, though. That's real safe for a little kid. If he's lucky, he won't end up like his criminal big brother.
Just let me go. Please.
You're the reason we need to build that wall. You hold tight.
There are legitimate debates to be had about the pros and cons of building a wall, but this game is basically painting everyone who wants to build a wall as evil people who kidnap Hispanic kids, which is pretty insidious. Here's another cutscene from another popular video game that portrays Batman's masculinity as toxic and ends with a woman basically ending Batman's life.
You had a good run, Brucey. Flying around Gotham, punching bad guys, cleaning up the streets, causing long-term mental and emotional damage to everyone you knew. It's our turn now. After all we've been through. Oh, bet you didn't think it'd be me at the end, huh, Bats?
Are we done with your bad stand-up routine?
Almost. But you always gotta end on your best joke.
There's very clearly an agenda and message being communicated in stories and cutscenes like these, and there are activists who are actively working very hard to shape the minds of the people, especially the children playing these kinds of games. And if we care about our children, we're going to care about the messages that are being communicated to them, including from video games like these.
Yeah, Overwatch 2 is another one of those games where you could make some kind of argument that, yeah, retroactively changing the sexuality of many characters, maybe there's an issue with that. Maybe these characters evolved over time. Maybe it's really not a big fucking issue and the issues surrounding Overwatch are way more important and massive and not about characters' sexuality. Just let the Rule 34 artists be by themselves, okay? Just let them do their thing.
The big difference between the Ackman and Christians is that he thinks same-sex behavior is normal and not a problem at all. And Christians believe same-sex behavior is sin and should not be promoted, especially not to children. There's a fundamental worldview difference here. Does he know about the existence of people with different views of the world than his own? Or is he just assuming that we're all just wrong to not want these kinds of agendas pushed on us or our kids?
WO Wars. No woke content. I call on this list. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? How is this not woke? How is this not woke? It's clearly shoving a political message.
Let's free the Patriots and defeat the globalist tech geeks.
Ugh. That really is what it comes down to. It's like, okay, we want politics in games, just the right politics, just the right, like Alex Jones, who's never had a bad opinion ever.
Hold on a minute. I have my own problems with Alex Jones too, but the word woke does mean something, and it doesn't just mean being political. I know he mentioned earlier the word woke not meaning anything, so maybe he just doesn't really know what the word is supposed to mean. It basically has to do with subverting what is perceived to be the oppressive class, and Christian values are part of what's supposed to be overthrown. As far as I know, Alex Jones is not trying to do that, but the activists who make a lot of these video games are.
You have to review these things based on each game individually. You can't just be like, well, that's woke, don't play it. You know, you have to actually examine it. Like the Alex Jones game could be a decent platformer. Could be. Looks kind of funny, like it's got a funny theme, but a lot of people just write off games because they don't contain the right politics, and I think that's really entitled and stupid.
I think the Ackman is only judging games based on whether they're fun to play or not, but when he talks about people writing off games because they don't have the right politics, I think he's missing the point that some games are promoting moral values that go against the moral values of many of the people who might play those games. And it seems pretty reasonable to me that a lot of people wouldn't want to play games that are basically working to attack and subvert what they believe. Some people think that the agenda and messages of games are important and shouldn't be compromised on just because a game might be fun to play.
Oh, Space Marine 2. Space Marine 2 is woke. The Ultramarines seen in game are improbably diverse. features frontline female combatants, including an improbable female authority figure. Get back in the kitchen, women. You can't be on the front lines.
Is it really that crazy to believe that men should be the ones on the front lines protecting women? Men and women are obviously very different physically, and there's a reason why throughout history, the people on the front lines have been men who are risking their lives to protect women. And is it really that crazy to have a problem with a game that seems to be trying to convince women that they should be on the front lines? Is it really that bad for men to want to protect women, knowing that they don't have the physical capabilities of men, generally speaking?
Divinity Original Sin 2? How? Romance options, okay. Like, that's a bad thing, you know what I mean? That's a bad thing to these people. Not that it's forced, as in it forces the player to be, but that it's an option in the game. Relationships are written and included for people who care, or for people who want to explore all pieces of content, all different types of relationships. It's like these people are discouraging that. And sounds like these are the people trying to shove political ideology into our video games instead of trying to keep it, you know, relegated to the artists themselves.
Aren't people allowed to have different points of view? If some people, including Christians, think same-sex behavior is sin and should not be promoted or celebrated, then doesn't it just make sense that they would want to warn other people with similar beliefs about the agenda and messaging in games that are openly promoting same-sex behavior? And if the artists are activists who are working to promote these anti-Christian ideologies, then it's simply one ideology against another ideology. I'm personally not really interested in shoving my ideology onto video games, but I am in favor of warning other Christians about the ideological danger of some video games and about the activism of the people behind these video games. Now, the Ackman doesn't need to agree with me or Christians, but I wonder if he would admit that our reaction to the agenda and messages in these games does kind of make sense.
Well, I hope this has been enlightening for all of you. I hope you have installed most of these games or deleted them from your hard drives. And I just wanted to do my part to raise awareness. Don't buy woke games like Fallout New Vegas, Knights of the Old Republic, Street Fighter 6, Power World, and of course, Call of Duty. But which is your favorite woke game? Let me know in the comments down below. Like the video if you enjoyed it, and subscribe to The Woke Man for more awesome content. Alright everyone, that's all I got for today. This is the Ackman signing out. Peace!
Honestly, nothing the Ackman said really surprises me. He's just talking from the perspective of a regular secular guy who thinks there is nothing wrong with same-sex behavior or with the DEI movement. He's not really actively promoting these ideas, and he just wants to play fun games. I'm not saying he doesn't care about morality, because he obviously does, but his views on morality on many of these issues is simply very different from Christians. Similarly, Charlie, also known as Penguin Zero, is another extremely popular YouTuber who doesn't think there's anything wrong with games promoting LGBT messages.
I am supportive of the LGBT, and I have been, and that's not something I've been shy about.
Now, like with the Ackman, I generally like hearing what Charlie has to say about random things happening on the internet. At the same time, I recognize that he has some very different views regarding morality, and I'm not going to look to him for moral guidance. In contrast to YouTubers like the Ackman and Charlie, I'm a Christian who takes very seriously activism that seeks to undermine and subvert biblical morality and God's design for human sexuality. I think it's really important to teach children God's laws and God's revelation, especially in the midst of a culture that is working overtime to indoctrinate children with ideas that are in direct opposition to what God has revealed in the Bible.
Satan's war starts in the womb and never lets up. It's carried through every medium possible to destroy children. Broken homes, sinful parents, in every electronic form of media, educational system, it's everywhere. Satan's war on children, by the way, is a war on God, because the children belong to him.
Hi, my name is Mike. I'm a deacon, a husband, a father, a software engineer, and an amateur maker of videos. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you want to help me in my mission to spread biblical truth, just subscribe and watch these videos until the end, which will help the YouTube algorithm recommend these videos to more people. I'm committed to using the skills and gifts God has given me to glorify Him and communicate biblical truth, and I would be so grateful if you would come be a part of what I'm building. You can visit my website at joyfulexile.com to learn more about me and what I'm working on. I hope you're having a blessed day. I will see you in the next video, and remember, this world is not our home.